I'm not sure this is recording. I think it is. Hi, this is Shar, and I'm giving you another update for Insider's Secret on how to overcome narcissistic abuse. And I've got some great news that I want to share with you. Along with my journey that I'll share from time to time, I'm making sure that I'm continuing my effort to bring awareness, funds, change to domestic violence and all the different dynamics that you encounter going through it. And one of the things that I'm really adamant on is that I got stuck kind of in a little unknown cove of need because my abuser had accused me of a crime falsely, knowing that the local authorities would come after me full force, which would take all the attention off of him, and he could continue his cycle of abuse on me. Long story short, finally got charges dismissed and have moved on, and my business is thriving and things are getting back to my normal. And in that process, wanting to make sure when I went through that, there were no services that were available to help me because at that time I was looked at as a criminal. And I wanted to make sure that I go back and help other women, men, but women that's what I am, so that's what I'm going to help. Get through the same situation, and I'm so happy to share with you that I had my first Jane Go, is what I'm going to call them, and Go is spelled G-O-E. And as I help additional women, I'm going to just number them: Jane Go 1, Jane Go 2, Jane Go 3, and not Jane Doe, which is what happens when you are a victim of domestic violence and you're killed by your abuser. But these are Jane Goes because we want them to get launched into life and living life the way it was intended. And helping the first Jane go through this process of transitioning out. So a little story behind the scene for her: 62-year-old, 17-year marriage, 15 years domestic abuse, and her husband has a long history of abusing her. And she's a little bitty 100-pound woman, he's about 250, and he finally figured out that when the cops are called, if he claims that she hit him, now, for 15 years, it's been him that's going to jail and getting in trouble. She's never, ever, ever, ever been in trouble for anything like that. But this last time, when he called the cops, he claimed that she hit him. And so she got arrested, she got processed, she was in jail for her 62nd birthday, she was in jail over Christmas, and once she was finally released from jail, and he didn't come bind her out, she has some co-workers that did, she was actually at the homeless shelter, and that's where I got pulled in to help her. And so having her stay here and be able to help her through that process of rebuilding and creating her new normal is something that there's not a lot of books out there on how do you do it. I think first and foremost, I know for the first 3 days, all she did was sleep because she's in a safe place. It was just her and I, and she could let her guard down, and she slept because for the first time probably in a lot of years, she hadn't been able to. And she was also a little discombobulated and not believing that this was her life. So that when she finally was, and for a few days she would come to me and say she feels bad because she's just sleeping all the time, and it was like, you know what, you need to go easy on yourself, because if you can't give grace to yourself, who can you give it to? Nobody else gives it to you for the most part. And so allowing her that time to just not even heal, I think just get her feet underneath her and feel safe is I know in my own story, until I was able to get into my next living situation. I went out and bought a townhome and get a security system in it where I felt safe because nobody was doing anything to protect me. They thought I was the bad guy, and this person was still attacking me in different ways, that I couldn't feel safe, that until I could get really good sleep, I wasn't able to get my feet underneath you. So no, first and foremost, if you're exiting or leaving a domestic violence situation, you need to get to a safe place where you're able to get your feet underneath you and just get a good night's sleep. And if it's one night, if it's 7 nights, just allow yourself the grace to know that it is during our sleep that we're actually healing. We're healing our body physically, and we're also healing our mindset and allowing yourself the grace of doing that. And even in sleep, and in your sleep, everything is possible. And so you can dream and kind of escape for a little bit, and that's probably exactly what you need. And then after that, we started really focusing on, she had woke up one day and she found that she was a little stuck because there was no resources available to her, because she was, according to the system, she was the abuser, and she really wasn't, but this is what they labeled her. So none of the resources were available for her to find housing, for her to get her new normal going, and she was just in a holding pattern. And those internal conversations that we have with ourselves are really, really critical, and you have to be very careful. There is a video out there, if you Google on YouTube, on the Miracle of Water. It's like the 3.5-minute version. Go watch that, because it's incredibly important, and by the end of it you'll understand what I'm talking about. The internal dialogue and the internal conversations that we have with ourselves, especially at this time, are really important. And when you find yourself beating yourself up or saying, you know what, maybe I should just go back, we need to stop that insanity and realize first, even with any 12-step program, the very first step is just recognizing there's a problem. So realizing that you're maybe not talking to yourself as well as you should because for years you haven't been talked to very well. Stop that internal dialogue. And part of what's going to help you do that and recognize that is to really limit your amount of television that you're watching. If you're going to watch something, make sure that it's something that's going to make you happy or make you laugh or empower you to a better place. Don't be watching those movies or television that creates a lot of emotion in you, because you don't have a lot of extra to share at this point. Make sure that that you're not listening to sad music, and that you really stay clear of some of those negative people. And you know who I'm talking about when I say that, the people that are draining you and taking more energy from you. You have to be very careful right now at this time that you're not really spending a lot of time with them. And if that's all that you have around you at that time, really stepping outside of a comfort zone, maybe reaching out to a church, reaching out to a friend, and finding the people that are going to be able to fill you up a little bit while you're down, and be very careful of your downtime and who you're surrounding yourself with. So one thing that I had Jane go do was, in the morning, she has a mirror in her room, and we wrote on it, and she knew every day she woke up there was one thing today that she had to get done. Just one. Now when you're rebuilding your whole life, you can think that there's just hundreds, and you can have those wheels turning in your head and just really get into where you're frozen because it's just too overwhelming. Or we can break it down. And so, the first few days were that she was going to take a shower, that she was going to eat 3 meals, and really just break it down into basic things that today we're just going to do this one thing today. And as time goes by, she kept a journal, so she was able to say, on this day I did this, and this day I did this. And as time goes by, she was able to look back, even after quick amount of time, 2 weeks, and see how far that she's really come. I need to turn this off so you guys don't. And then the other thing is for her to list 5 things every morning that she was grateful for. And this grateful, you can't reuse it. You can't say the same 5 things every day. So at first, the first few days, pretty easy. You could say, I'm happy that I have my eyesight, my vision, my touch. I'm happy that I know this Jane Go had an automobile. So she was a step ahead of a lot of people exiting a relationship. So every day she's listing 5 things that she's very grateful for, because what we focus on expands. And so if we're laying in bed, or if we're focusing on how much devastation or how much our lives have changed with this instance that has made you have to create a new normal, you can really get kind of lost in that abyss. But to take the time and focus on what you're grateful for, and to realize that you're really better off today than you were yesterday. And the more we go seek those things that we're grateful for, the more that you're going to be able to find them. Now, logistically, I know that even with doing the 1 thing a day and the 5 things that you're grateful for, there was still a lot of sleeping. There was also crying. And just allowing yourself to cry. I know in my own instance, my life was just completely turned upside down. And there were times where it wasn't crying, it was probably just moaning and letting pain exit my body. The thing with emotion, unlike physical abuse where it's called physical abuse, so there's physical symptoms that you can see. Emotional abuse, and those emotional things that happen to us, you can't see emotion at all. And so if we could, we'd be able to probably walk around and realize how much emotional abuse there is. But emotions aren't something you can see. And I believe that by crying, it is one of the only things that we can do physically that allows a release of those emotions to just kind of come out. So, crying into a pillow and just hugging it and allowing yourself to get that sloppy, snotty, cry out, it doesn't mean that you're weak. It doesn't mean that you're not moving forward. It means that you probably loved really deeply. and that you just got some healing to do internally. And every time you cry, just know that that's almost like I want to say like a scab for your soul, or just some healing that you're allowing yourself to do. So don't feel that because you're still emotional or you're still crying that you're not moving forward in direction. As long as you woke up, and heck, I want to say get out of bed, but if you can't get out of bed, that's okay. This is all, tomorrow figure out what the one thing you're going to do is, and on that day, that's what your focus is until you get it done. And if something happens where you can't get that done, you mark it down and you make it the thing that you do the next day until you're able to mark that off your list. And with Jane Go, she, oh wow, after we had this talk, after about 3 days of focusing on, her one thing that she's going to get done and then 5 things that she was grateful for, she was on fire. And she got her Social Security in line. She got her job back. She interviewed to get her job back, and then she got her job back. And then she went out and she's got a place to live. And so her momentum is building, and it's building in a way that's long term for her. And she understands that she's building her new normal, and she gets to completely choose what's in that. And so the beauty of that is that you're in control of it all. So we don't have to give that part up anymore. You get to choose. You don't want to have a house where there's fighting. You don't have to. I know in her situation, she has a son that was living with her, that when this all happened, her ex kicked her son out. So here she is staying in a safe house, knowing that her son is out on the street, homeless. And so she had a little bit more of a motivator to kind of get things in order and get down the road. And that's, her family is very important to her. All of our families are very important to us. Logistically, one thing that you probably need to do right away is to see if you can get a post office box or find the address that you can use long term to receive mail, and not the address that you came from or an address that is known. If you're working, maybe ask your employer if you can have personal mail sent there. If you have a friend, if you have a church that you belong to, seeing if you can get mail at that consistent place that you're going to be at, so that your things can follow you. It's as Jane Go is setting all of this stuff up right now. She's using my address, but now she's already moved. She's got a different address, and that's something that logistically early on it would probably benefit you greatly to make sure that you've got a PO address or an address that you can use long term. Maybe a relative who doesn't mind getting your mail at their house, that owns a house that you know is not going to move. That would be very happy or very helpful. And then also to make sure along the way that you really slow down and stop and celebrate the small successes and the small steps that are getting you through this process. I know for Jane Glow, when she was arrested, she had spent her 62nd birthday in jail, and so there was an evening that we went out just to celebrate her birthday the right way, the way that she deserved, not the way that it actually happened. And not that we can go back and do things over, but if we had to, we probably did it the way that she would have chosen to have it. So make sure that you slow down and you celebrate those small successes. You pat yourself on the back, even if somebody else isn't there to do it. And you realize, especially if you're keeping a journal, or if you're a cell phone user, just keeping a notebook that says, today I did this, and these are the 5 things I'm grateful for you to be able to look back and in a short amount of time be able to see how much progress that you've made. And all those little short steps, you don't learn to walk as a baby and the next day you're doing marathons. It all takes little bitty steps to get you there. And knowing that even one day after you leave a situation, you're in a better position than you were the day before, and that you're always in a position to help. Now, you may not be in a position to help financially, but you're in a position to help by listening, by talking, by looking around and paying attention at maybe some of the things that were missing or some of the things that you didn't have that you wish you had. Go be that to other people. Speak up and let other people know those things, because everybody wants to, I believe everybody wants to help each other and stay connected, but I guess there's probably a few people who don't. I don't talk to those people. So I'm intending by sharing this information with you, if you are recently leaving a relationship, if you're thinking about leaving a relationship, or you're exiting, especially a domestic violence situation where there's physical abuse, realize that the new normal that you're creating is not something you're doing alone. There are a lot of people who have exited relationships. There's not just one way or 2 ways to go about doing this. It's really about doing what feels right in you, A relaxation technique that I had taught Jane Glow was in those moments, maybe, you know, in the moment of chaos, or when you're in the middle of, I know she has some court dates and she had some other things that were popping up, to get a few moments, 5 minutes where you're just alone. Maybe it's right before you go to sleep at night, and you're going to take a deep breath in. Now when you're breathing in, you're going to do it to a slow count of 4. You're going to hold your breath for a slow count of 4, and you're going to release the breath through your mouth, and you're going to take longer than you took to breathe it in. Now I'd like you to do 4 sets of those, and what happens is when you're doing that, your brain goes to the other side, and it's a different way of thinking. It's a healthier way. It's releasing good chemicals in your body, and it's in that state of mind that you're going to know what the next step is that you need to do, and to trust that gut feeling inside of you to lead you through this process, because it is when we get away from all the clutter and confusion. Most of us, when we're exiting a domestic violence situation, it's like a war zone, and we're in the middle of all this noise, and we don't really plug into that quiet. But all you need is a couple minutes in your car at night before you doze off. Turn the TV off and just get really quiet and plug into that, and that's going to give you the direction and the ability to figure out how you're going to navigate your exit strategy, when to do it, when to align with, and trust that gut feeling that you probably have not been trusting in a long time. It's your gift. It's your gift from God that's going to get you through. And you know, they say the Holy Spirit lives in you. I call it your gut. Some people, everybody's got a name for it, but it's there. It hasn't gone anywhere. We just need to learn to plug into it. So I hope that through listening, my intent through making this video is that if you are leaving a domestic violence situation, if it is anything that feels like you are anything less than amazing, you don't have to tolerate that, stand that, definitely not physical abuse. That's never acceptable. And know that you've got a world of people that think the world of you. And a lot of it is just that you need to speak up and ask for help. Domestic violence is one of those things that we've just kind of brushed under the rug, sadly, especially when it affects 50, 75%. I think it's more. Just people don't talk about it. And they don't talk about it because it is usually so personal to us. It makes us vulnerable. It's in vulnerability that we bond. And it is through vulnerability that we grow. And when I say grow, I just mean mindset. And you know, it's called a growing pain because it kind of hurts. Just like the physical growing pains with our bones, there is emotional growing pains that happen when you realize that you are just an amazing, amazing gift. And that from your beginning, you were designed for greatness. If you weren't, you wouldn't be here. On that day, you were the #1 swimmer. There was like 150 million of you. So you were a really, really good swimmer that day. And then in your life, you're going to do great, great, great things. Even if somebody hasn't told you that you are great, you are great. And you deserve great things. Starting first and foremost with finding a safe place. And then get busy loving yourself. Because as you love yourself, there are things that will happen, and there will be new boundaries that you create that you won't let people walk over because of how far you've come. And just know that in your life, you've got great things that's going to happen. And if you're in your saddest, worst day that you've ever had, I've been there too. But the promise of the worst day that you've ever had is that your best day is waiting for you to find it. And so instead of focusing maybe on how bad today is, use some of your energy to focus on how great that day will be. Because what you focus on expands, and we want to focus on the good stuff. So I hope that you know that we're all so powerful, and we are all connected, and that through going through what you're going through, you'll be able to help others. And maybe not in as a public way as I'm doing it, but just through maybe a kind word, or being able to just help somebody in their trajectory, or stay connected, because we all want to be valued and heard. So we're all powerful. Hope you're feeling it, and know that, you know what, go love somebody, but today, start by loving yourself. And talk to you next time. Bye.